All right, so we are out in the field, out of the office, back out on location for an old school photo walk. I am really excited. So a lot of people like to push film, and we see a lot of examples of that, but we don't see as much pulled film. And I think it would be really fun for me to try that and share my results with you guys so we can talk a little bit more about pushing and pulling and what that actually means. Is it done in camera? Is it done in development? There's a lot of misconception around those two processes. So on today's walk, I am going to shoot a roll of Portra 400 and I'm going to pull it to stops. And then I'm going to send that away to my lab, Ikigai. They will dev and scan it, and then they will help me interpret the results. We will then deep dive into pulling and pushing as well and kind of clear up some of the misconceptions around those with the help of the team at Ikigai, who are sponsoring today's video. Thank you. So stick around for all of that and let's go pull some film. So since we're already here, I'm going to start off with this really awesome, unique building that I have shot a few times before. I'll get a couple of snaps of that. Normally I'm looking for pops of color and I love like saturated, really bright, bold colors. But since we're shooting Portra and we're pulling, it's going to be a little bit more muted and kind of pastel-y looking, I guess. So I'm going to try and lean into that look and try something different. I'm going to get like a lot closer. Maybe they look kind of nice. Okay, cool. So today I'm using the Minolta XGM, which we picked up at a thrift store for like $30, and we put one roll through it and the photos looked really good, really sharp. I think this was Matt Day's first film camera, so shout out to you, Matt Day. If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. It's actually super warm today. It's kind of messy. Oh, I can't stop shooting this building. It looks so good. I mean, this house. So I'm shooting this roll of Portra 400 at box speed, and then I'm going to get my lab to do the pulling in development. I think where some of the misconceptions come in, because even I was a bit confused with this, is that I thought that the pushing and the pulling happened in camera. So if I wanted to pull this roll to stops, then I would shoot this at 100 and that would overexpose it. But that's simply just overexposing. The pulling is something that happens in development, but we'll get more into that once I've got the results back and I can get some solid info from the team at Ikigai, and then that'll be kind of more expert and we can work through it together. Feel free to comment below if you regularly push or pull film. I know a lot of people that develop at home do that, so please feel free to pop any resources, any other videos, any tips, tricks, or anything you can clear up in the comments. It would be super helpful because I find it a little bit confusing. So I'm probably going to shoot half the roll in my walk around style, and then I'll get Lux, who's behind the camera, to shoot some portraits of me because we are shooting Portra after all. And I've been seeing online a lot lately, like on Instagram, a lot of kind of, I don't know if they're pulled or they're underexposed, but yeah, like super underexposed, like, but in bright sun, pictures of girls normally at the beach, that kind of vibe. And I really like it. I think it's a really interesting, cool look. So I want to try and recreate that today with some portraits of me. I'm getting some sneaky Faisal shots. too tall. All right, so I've taken quite a few photos just walking around. So we're gonna put the video camera away. We're gonna go and get some portraits where the light isn't so harsh and finish off the roll that way. I'm gonna send it away to the lab and then I will meet you guys back in the studio and we'll discuss the results. See you there. Okay guys, we are back in the studio to discuss the results. So I'm quite surprised at how much I like these photos, especially considering I normally favor a high contrast, highly saturated, bold, punchy look in my photos, but I am really loving the softness of these portraits. So these shots came out a little bit different than I had expected. I'm not a huge fan of portrait. Obviously, it's a really great film, but I just find it to be a little bit boring and kind of too perfect sometimes. I was expecting more of an underexposed look, but these look bang on exposure wise to me. The reds are really desaturated and the tones, especially in the skin, are just really creamy and peachy rather than just being natural like how portrait normally looks. We shot these portraits in midday sun, so the light was very harsh, which can be quite unflattering for portraits. So I think pulling this 2 stops has really evened that out, and the way it's rolling off the highlights just looks super nice. I think the beauty of film is experimenting, and sometimes things come out completely different to how you thought they would, and that's why it's such a fun medium to play with. I've been shooting film for over a decade, but I still feel like there's always something new to try and discover, and that's what keeps me coming back to it. But this was just my interpretation of the photos, and I thought it would be a good idea to ask the team at Ikigai for their expert opinion on how they thought the results looked. So I had a little chat with owner Pete, and he gave me his feedback on these results. Pete explained that the strong light really helped to get a decent exposure. He also said there was a slight color cast that was corrected in scanning. The biggest thing that the team noticed was a reduction in overall contrast and slightly less saturation too, which I can definitely see. But what about pushing and pulling film? What do those 2 processes actually do, and when should we be using them? Pete provided some insight here too. Pete said for color negative film, pulling and pushing will mostly just control contrast. Pushing will add contrast while pulling will remove it. Pete explained that the speed boost you get from pushing color negative film is negligible. The message that's really important for people to take away from this is that when they're deciding to push color film, it isn't going to turn your Portra 400 into an 800 or 1600 ISO film just by pushing it. The sensitivity of the film does not change. Blacks get blacker and whites get whiter. I definitely learned something here. I thought that pushing film would give you a little bit of extra room to move if you were shooting in a low light situation. But from what Pete said, it really seems like it's marginal, if that. So another part of the process here with pushing and pulling, which I did mention earlier in the video when we were out on our photo walk, is the process. So is this something that happens in camera or something that happens in the developing stage? Do we need to shoot at box speed, or do we change the ISO and under or overexpose to compensate for pushing or pulling? I feel like this is where things get a little bit murky and kind of misunderstood in the community. So I thought it would be good to ask Pete his take on whether we should be shooting at box speed or under or overexposing. These were the lab's recommendations. Pulling in general, we'd recommend developing as normal because depending on the light, the results might not be as good as this. Contrast is very easy to control in scan/post, and you don't have to deal with color casts. In short, pull film if you want to experiment with less contrast and don't want to remove it in post. And don't push film to save an underexposed roll. Rather, push film to add contrast. The team have a film stock that they think that you should try pushing, and that is Ektar 100, shot at box speed, pushed 2 stops to add some epic saturation and contrast. I think I'm definitely going to be trying that. So overall here, I think we've learned that pushing and pulling film is a fun experiment to try, and it's something we should be using to get a look, more contrast, less contrast, etc., rather than trying to emulate different ISOs. So obviously today we talked about color negative film, and pushing and pulling in black and white I think is a lot more common, but that's something for a different episode. If you would like to see me try something like that, definitely comment below and let me know. So basically I pulled Portra 400 2 stops, so you don't have to. Finding the right lab was a huge game changer for me, and Ikigai have been an integral part of my success as a photographer, whether that's personal work, client work, high-res quality scans for exhibitions or features, as well as my own personal projects. I rely on them to bring my film to life. The team's attention to detail and vast knowledge with film is not the only reason to choose them though. Lab owner Peter Davison has been hard at work developing not only hundreds of rolls of film, but also an exciting recycling initiative to offset the plastic waste that film photography produces. Film canisters are being shredded at Ikigai HQ and turned into a product that will hit the market soon. Snap 35 is a film case made to hold your film rolls, and each holder removes the equivalent of 45 film container lids or 19 bottoms from the waste stream. This kind of program makes Ikigai a leader in sustainable practices and is just another reason to choose them as your go-to lab. Not to mention the scans are fire. Is that lame? Or it's just like true. Check out the links below to follow along with Ikigai and check out their full range of lab services and products. So will I be choosing to pull film in the future? Yes, I will. I think it's something I would do for client work more than personal work, and definitely for portraits as well, as the skin tones are just so lush. I mean, come on, I almost look face tuned here. My skin is not this good IRL. We often have to shoot in quite harsh light at midday, which isn't the best for portraits. You get a lot of harsh, unflattering kind of shadows. And I think doing something like this would really mitigate that. We don't have the luxury of shooting when we want to at golden hour, as we have to work around our little one. So this is definitely something I will use and have in my kit to kind of hack shooting in harsh light. I am very keen to try out this pushing Ecta that Ikigai have recommended. If you have pulled or pushed any kind of color negative film before, or you have anything you want to add to the conversation here, please comment below so we can all learn and share. If you have some great examples of pulling or pushing film, please tag me on Instagram and I'll share it to my story. I would love to see what you guys have done with these processes. A big thank you to the legends at Ikigai for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to follow along and try them out if you are in Australia. Thanks guys. I'll see you next time.